I drew this too high. So, y'all can just appreciate this now. Then I'm just gonna... That looks somewhat proportionate. What's production value? Hello everyone, my name is Tom. Welcome back to Let's Talk with Tom, the show where I casually talk to you about some cartoon I watched recently and want to talk about. Today, that show is The Dragon Prince. And I will be spoiling stuff, so if you're interested in watching The Dragon Prince, go and do that. It doesn't take long. It's like just over 3 hours. Like, it doesn't take that long to get through it, so you got that somewhere in your schedule. So Dragon Prince has been a show with a lot of hype around it for a while because one of the head writers from Avatar, Aaron Ehas, is one of the creators. And I say one of the creators because the other one is Justin Richmond, who worked on not Borderlands. It would be cool if he did, but no, Uncharted, which is another popular game that people like to play. And he's a big reason why they're gonna make a companion video game to go with the series that's not gonna be about the same characters, not going to be the same story, but it's going to be in the same world. And it's kind of cool how they're going to do that. Like, add another layer of, like, people being able to explore the world of the show that you are creating. But I don't really hear people mention that part a lot, so I just wanted to give Justin his recognition, because a lot of people just skip over him and be like, oh my god, the guy from Avatar. Now today I want to talk about a topic, and it might be a little bit political, so I'm sorry for everyone who doesn't like me talking about politics stuff, but we're going to be talking about that today, and I might end up on 4chan, I don't know. This is the price I pay to be authentic on this type of platform, so I just want to make engaging dialogue. Like, you can't do that by just being like, hey, we're going to play it safe today, so we're going to talk about something a little political, and that's kind of how race and everything plays into the world and the characters of the Dragon Prince, because it's a present thing. Like, it's clearly a theme they're going for, and I want to talk about it. I want to explore it, because I feel like there isn't a whole lot of good dialogue going on about it. So just for background, the Dragon Prince is set in like this medieval time, where there's dragons, there's elves, there's magic, there's castles, there's knights, all the stuff. It's not really too great at setting itself apart from other shows that have the same kind of setting, but I don't know, maybe with Exadia, which is like the magical half of the world, like, we haven't really seen a whole lot of that. Maybe they can set themselves apart with that. That's what I'm looking forward to moving forward. We haven't seen it yet. Maybe they'll be able to show that their world isn't just the same as like Game of Thrones and every other medieval story going on in the last 1,000 years. The main races are like humans, then elves, and then dragons are lumped in there. I'm going based off like the Wikipedia. Dragons aren't really a race, they're kind of more of a species. And even then, like, would you consider elves, like, they're referred to as a race, and that's usually how fantasy stuff goes, but wouldn't they be more of a separate species? Maybe? I'm not sure how that works, to be honest. But it's different. They're different. And the humans themselves, there's actually quite a bit of diversity on the cast. Like, King Hero is a literal black king. He has dreadlocks and everything. And I really liked him in his character because he didn't like Lord Viren be walking all over him, being like, yo, I'm your friend, I deserve to get clout. He's like, nah, you my servant. Just because we friends doesn't mean that you get to feel important. And also, he wasn't gonna like switch bodies with people to avoid being killed by Moon Shadow Elves. And also Callum, who is his stepson, he treats him like he's his own flesh and blood, and it's like, dog, that's heartwarming. In addition to that, Callum and Ezran's aunt, Amaya, who is not only deaf, is also of Asian descent, which means that Callum and Ezran's mother is Asian, which means that Callum is at least half Asian, and Ezran is half black, half Asian, which is like, dog, that's some crazy diversity just in your main cast that, like, you don't usually see. Although, the thing is I don't think that there's really oppression and racism towards people of color in this world. I don't know if there is, we haven't seen it, and if we have, then I blinked and I missed it. But most of the xenophobia, it's more so xenophobia than racism, is towards elves. And what we mostly see is xenophobia against Moonshadow Elves, which one of our main characters is a Moonshadow Elf, so we really get to see that firsthand. Now, as these things always are, this has a bit of history to it. Many years before what we're seeing happened, there were 6 primal sources of magic. And then one day humans were like, yo, we can just like use dark magic by taking the essence and life force of things around us, and then we can use magic that way. And the elves and the dragons were like, you can't be doing that. That is some demonic nonsense that we don't want to be a part of, so if if y'all want to do that, you can go to the other side of the continent, and y'all can do that, and we're gonna have a big volcanic border with a dragon defending it. The Dragon King is gonna defend that border. And at some point in more recent history, the humans went and they used dark magic to kill the king dragon, the Dragon King, and it was believed that they destroyed his egg, the Dragon Prince, when, like, the main plot point of the story is that Ezran found the egg in the castle, and now they're going back to Zadia to return it, which is where Rayla comes in. Rayla is a Moonshadow elf assassin, and I think she's my favorite character in the show, honestly. Like, she just has a lot going for her. She's one of the most developed characters, at least on the main cast, and she's the center of the main topics that the show wants to deal with, like redemption, bigotry, but most of all, I really love her journey in opening up about how she's always been conditioned to suppress her emotions, suppress fear, and how she feels inadequate because as an assassin, she's never been able to bring herself to actually kill anyone. This is also kind of tying into a theme that I explored in my Runaway Club about Avatar: Last Airbender. I don't want to make a whole lot of comparisons to the two shows because they're different, but everyone's going to make them because Aaron E has. But this ties into the theme of a conflict between your sense of self and society's expectations. Because she's a Moon Elf assassin, she's expected to kill people, but her sense of self and her moral compass tells her you shouldn't be killing people. Like, she's too empathetic, and she sees that as a weakness when in reality it's kind of a strength. I also just want to mention that this really reminded me of a video made by Jonathan McIntosh at Pop Culture Detective called The Case Against the Jedi Order, where he talked a lot about the toxic elements of the Jedi mindset of suppressing fear and stoicism, and how in the world of Star Wars, in order to become a true Jedi Master, you have to detach yourself from all emotions. And the ideology among Moon and Shadow Owls is very similar, that if they let go of fear, then they'll become better assassins. And part of their ideology is even that they see themselves as already dead, that way they won't fear death. And if they don't fear death, then there's not much left to fear. But at the same time, if you're a person, you're going to have emotions, regardless of whether or not you have a mantra that you repeat to yourself saying, I am already dead, or you try as hard as possible to bury your emotions. You're still gonna have those emotions, and beating yourself up over it isn't healthy. This is also a theme actually touched on in Avatar: Last Airbender. Aang was training to unlock the Avatar state, and he left because Katara was in trouble, but he was asked to detach himself from all of his relationships, from the ones he loved, in order to harness the power of the Avatar state, and he chose to help his friends instead of go towards that power. And afterwards, he kind of felt like, I don't know if I made the right choice, and I think Uncle Iroh put it the best when he said,
Perfection and power are overrated. I think you are very wise to choose happiness and love.
And the thing about this little arc within Rayla's personality is it's gotten her a lot of praise as far as her writing goes, because she is a strong female character, but they prove that they aren't afraid to make her vulnerable and show that she is still flawed despite her many talents. What we're supposed to realize through Rayla is that Moonshadow Elves, just like everyone else in this world, are people, despite being bad in the eyes of humans, having a different culture and a different worldview. This is combined with showing the multiple forms of adversity that Rayla faces specifically because she is a Moonshadow Elf. Being attacked by Amaya without provocation, being attacked again by one of Amaya's guards, having to disguise herself just to go into a small village, and regularly being the target of harassment and hateful comments because of her identity. These are all things that are meant to mimic forms of intolerance in the real world and come across to the viewer as unjust. The interesting thing is there aren't a lot of human characters that are actively trying to unlearn the hateful things that they have been taught about Moonshadow Elves or try to accept Rayla. And the only ones who are really are Callum, Ezran, and Ellis. I'd even tie in King Harrow because he was more empathetic than everyone else when discussing the plan against combating the fact that Moonshadow Elves were coming to assassinate him. He was the only one who was really empathetic to what they had gone through at the hands of humans. One of the main reasons he didn't want to do the whole body soul switch two-head snake thing was because he understood that the kingdom that he represents had committed crimes against Moonshadow Elves that he thinks getting assassinated by them is just paying the price of that.
I've done terrible things. I thought they were necessary. Now I don't know. But I do know I will pay the price for the choices I made.
And I know I conflicts with a lot of theories out there that King Hero is actually alive, but honestly, I kind of feel the way about those theories that a lot of people felt about the Pink Diamond is Rose Quartz theory, where it's like, yeah, you could do that, it would be possible, it makes sense, but like, it would take away from a lot of the interesting aspects of what you could do, so I'd rather you not. So for now, I ain't entertaining that in my analysis. But the thing about the fact that so few characters don't hold xenophobic ideas about elves and Moonshadow Moonshao elves specifically is the rest of them do. Even the ones who are pretty likable and very well liked by the fandom. And it serves as an interesting litmus test how certain characters will say really awful things, but then still be portrayed a certain way by the fans. As likable as characters like Claudia, General Amaya, or even Soren may be, it can't be denied that they hold really bigoted beliefs. Yet a lot of fans still want to take the typical approach of disarming and making these characters seem like wholesome and pure innocent people. But there's a really strong juxtaposition when they slip into saying and acting in ways that really disturbingly replicate real-life racism. As a person of color, hearing Claudia or Amaya talk about elves in the same disgusted and hateful way that I've been talked to by certain white people or heard certain white people talk about other people of color, I really cannot see those characters in the same light anymore. I can't look at Claudia or Amaya's cute little moments and think, oh, that's so adorable, when it's like, bruh. I know that's something that not a lot of people are going to be able to empathize with or understand, but for people who do understand what I'm talking about, it's really not something that you can overlook. And also, why does Claudia say elf like that? Like, elf. It's just ugly. Of course, these aren't the only characters in the show with a blatant prejudice towards Moonshadow elves, but they're really the only ones who are kind of a moral neutral framing. So it really leaves the audience up to make their own interpretations about them. Like, of course, we have Lord Byron, who is just straight up bad. He's depicted as a really awful person who has no sense of empathy or care for other people, and you're not supposed to like him. I'm not saying that there's something wrong with the writing of the show because you're supposedly supposed to like Claudia or Soren or Amaya. I think that they kind of set things up so it's like, we'll see if people still like them despite these aspects of their personality, because those aspects of their personality aren't sugarcoated, they aren't watered down, they're just there. And that's kind of how things will end up in real life. You'll meet a racist person and not even know they're racist, and you'll think they're very fine people, and then just at some point the topic of race will come up and they'll say something incredibly intolerant and disgusting, and some people, they'll realize, okay, this isn't someone I want to associate with, and others, they don't see it as a deal breaker. And it's kind of off-putting to people who don't have the luxury of taking the same level of forgiveness towards something like that. But the thing is people say that because Lord Byron has these beliefs, Soren and Claudia, who are his children, are just brainwashed by his ideas. Like, oh, it's not them, it's their dad. Like, he's brainwashing them. And it's like, where do you think people learn to be racist? It's usually from their parents. The fact that Byron is racist and he's passed down those ideas to his children, it doesn't mean that just because they might be misguided, just because they might not understand maybe these stereotypes about Moonshadow elves are wrong and they just need to be enlightened, it doesn't change the effect of what they do. It doesn't change the effect of the things Claudia says to Rayla. Regardless of her intentions, those things are just as bad as if they were to come from Lord Byron himself.
I can't believe you're such a jerk.
What's wrong?
You called me a bloodthirsty monster. You have no idea how that feels.
But I don't actually believe any of that. I thought she'd back down.
Oh, that went well. They tried to kill me.
I'm sorry. That's not what I meant to happen.
Well, it did.
However, that doesn't mean that these characters are necessarily beyond redemption. And I'm sure that for at least a few of these really likable characters, by the end of the series, they're gonna turn full face and realize that their bigotry towards Moonshadow elves and the people of Zadia are really just that, bigoted, and learn from that and become better people. And for others, I can see them just turning full heel. When it comes to Amaya, I think that by the end of the series, like by the very end, she will have turned and learned to accept Moonshadow elves by the end. As far as like the immediate future, I'm not so sure. It depends. Like, she could just go along with her nation's ideologies, but at the same time, as the aunt of Ezran and Callum, I do think that's possible that they could maybe like persuade her and she would be willing to listen, and it's possible that she might turn from that. Now for the children of the main antagonist himself, if I'm being honest about how I see it, I think that Soren will probably be the one to be completely good by the end. Mainly if you just look at the missions that Lord Byron gave when he instructed Claudia and Soren to go out and find the princes, the stakes there are very different, and you can kind of see who is more likely to abandon their mission in favor of their moral compass. Because both of them are faced with this moral conflict of do whatever you have to do to complete your mission. And for Claudia, it was really just make sure I get the egg, and if it happens to be at the cost of Soren's life, then the egg is more important. That's not really high stakes. Like, maybe Soren might die, maybe he might not, but regardless, it doesn't seem like something they wouldn't be willing to do. But with Soren, he was told, make sure the princes don't come back, which means he would have to kill Callum and Ezran, and they aren't going to kill off two of the main characters. And even though Soren has been like one of the biggest jerks in the show, he also has a good heart to him. You can see that he genuinely cares about them and wants to help them. If anything with that story, I think that they'll probably find a way to like fake Callum and Ezran's death. And if that does happen, I can totally see Soren having so much guilt that he turns on his dad. So unless Soren actually does die on their quest, I don't see him not joining forces with the protagonists. However, Claudia, and this may be controversial, but I probably think she's going to turn full villain. My main reasons being that she has been one of the most aggressively anti-elf and pro-dark magic characters other than Lord Byron, and it would be one hell of an emotional roller coaster if she turned out to be a villain, considering how big of a fan favorite she is. But I think if they could pull it off, that would be amazing. There would also be a lot of complexity from the fact that Callum has feelings for her. Like, you would have to, I don't know what they're doing. They're like tearing down this wall next door. I don't know if y'all can hear that. But honestly, it's just a very rich emotional avenue that they could go down with so many different nooks and crannies to explore. Imagine if we went with the whole Callum and Ezran fake their deaths thing. Imagine if like Soren's like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that. And then Claudia's just like, you did what you had to do. Like, she's just completely indifferent to it. And like, they managed to like make it so like everyone hears that. And then Soren's like, bro, what the fuck? And then like Callum has to deal with the fact that like this girl he has a crush on was just totally cool with him and his brother dying. Like, just imagine how hard that would hit. That would be bold. And I think that they should, like, honestly, now that I've theorized this, I want them to do it. I really want to see that happen, just because like it would be so powerful and it would lead to such an interesting story following that. But that's about all I got to say. Do you guys have your own ideas about anything I said? If so, leave them in the comments below or tweet me at TomEPQM. That's all I gotta say, so thank you for watching Let's Talk with Tom on the Roundtable, but Tom isn't just on the Roundtable. I have my own self-titled personal channel. I have a Twitter, I have an Instagram, I have a Snapchat, I have all that good stuff. In fact, I even have a Tumblr. So if you're interested in any of that, check that out, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.